What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show here. And, the Bengals have a huge matchup tonight with the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to be talking about that, previewing that a little bit. Also, briefly recapping the Bengals win this past week. They got their first victory of the season on Sunday, defeating the New York Jets 27-12. Looking into this Jets game here, it just kind of seemed from start to finish, the Bengals were in control pretty much the whole game. You could tell the Bengals were very aggressive to start out this Jets game. And, even as far as, the opening, kickoff and the coin toss, instead of electing to get the ball the second half, the Bengals decided to, get the ball, electing to get the ball first. They were very aggressive. Their opening drive, they were able to score, really had control of the entire game. Our offensive line was much, much better, but I don't know how much it has to do with our competition. When you look at, our first 2 weeks, we played the Steelers, we played the Cowboys. We gave up 13 sacks in those two games, and there's some of the best defenses in the NFL. On Sunday against the Jets, we only gave up 2 sacks. The offensive line was much improved on the passing blocks. When it comes to, run blocking, that's a complete different story. Mixon, yet again, was unable to really get it going. After 3 games so far, Mixon is only averaging 2.8 yards per carry. That is really, really shocking to me, because I really thought, at this point, a couple games of the season, I thought he'd be top 5 in rushing yards so far, but that is obviously not the case. Like I said, they won 27-12. Burrow had over 260 passing yards. It's interesting because, Jamar Chase only had 29 of those. Taylor Boyd had a huge game. He had a great catch and run. He had over 100 receiving yards for the game and also had a touchdown on Sunday. Once again, proving why he's one of the most underrated team here. It's really interesting because when you look at this, Bengals team, the second half was just kind of different. The first half we were very aggressive. We were pretty much able to do whatever we wanted to for the most part, except really run the football. And then you look in the second half, we did really nothing. We didn't really get anything going. We only scored 7 points the second half. Like I said, the score was 27-12, but the second half score was 7-3 us. I know we might really not be being aggressive. We're already up a decent amount of points in the second half, but I don't want our play calls to be super conservative in the second half. I don't care if our play calls are aggressive, conservative, whatever it is. We should be scoring more than 7 points in a second half against the New York Jets, a team who isn't really good, who doesn't have really a good defense. But, it's great that the Bengals were able to get their first victory this past Sunday against the Jets. This was a big game for us because if we lost this game, we were in some serious trouble the remaining of the season because, we have some tough matchups ahead. Our defense really, stepped up. Our first 2 games, we only had 2 sacks. And that's crazy because when you look at this Steelers offensive line, you look at this Cowboys offensive line, neither one of those teams really have good offensive lines. And we only had 2 sacks in 2 games, which is horrendous because when you look at how many good defensive players we have on this team. On Sunday against the Jets, we had 4 sacks. It was a completely different story. Trey Hendrickson was freaking phenomenal. He had 4 quarterback hits and 2.5 sacks. The first couple games we were talking about, now he needs to step up. He definitely delivered that game against the Jets. BJ Hill had half a sack as well. Jesse Bates did have an interception, but that's kind of he really lucked in that play. It wasn't really much that he did. It was just the ball landed right into his hands. But looking at this, Bengals game here tonight against the Miami Dolphins, this is a huge, huge game. Bengals and Dolphins. The Dolphins are 3-0. They are only one of 2 teams in the NFL still undefeated, them and the Philadelphia Eagles. And to me, when you look at these 2 undefeated teams between the Eagles and the Dolphins, I definitely think the Dolphins are the better team because they've played better teams, they've played better competition, and they've just looked overall better. They've been able to pass the ball and run the ball. And when you look at this Dolphins team, it's really interesting. The 3 games they've won, they've beat pretty decent teams. They beat the New England Patriots. They beat the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, scoring 42 points against the Ravens. And then they, last week they just defeated the Buffalo Bills 21-19. And when you look at the Bills, you look at the Ravens, they only have 1 loss on their season so far. And both of those teams' 1 loss comes from the Miami Dolphins. And, everybody loves to talk about, the Tyreek Hill and Eli Apple, all that and everything. I don't get it at all. Yes, Eli Apple to me is underrated by the national media, but I think he's overrated by Bengals fans. And, Eli Apple did play really good against the, Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. But even if we are able to contain Tyreek Hill, they still have Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle has been sensational this season. Jalen Waddle is second in the NFL receiving yards. In 3 games, he already has 342 receiving yards this season. That is insane. That is second most in the NFL. And when you look at this, Dolphins game, it's really interesting to me because they were really able to, go after Josh Allen, when they played the Bills on Sunday. They were able to sack Josh Allen 4 times, and, they also had 4 quarterback hits on Josh Allen. So I want to see, if the Dolphins are able to do that again or not, against this Bengals team, who it looks like the offensive line is proving, but it's, like I said, it's kind of deceiving because when you're playing against the Jets and then when you're playing against the Cowboys and the Steelers, a little bit of a different story, major lack of competition, major gap between those teams as well when it comes to rosters and, players who have experience. But this Bengal game should be very interesting. When you look at this Miami Dolphins team, they are second most in giving up the most passing yards in a game. They're giving up 297 passing yards a game. And you look at who's first is the Baltimore Ravens. They're giving up 353 passing yards a game. So the odds of Joe Burrow going off these next 2 weeks, to me, I think are very, very high. I think Burrow is going off the next 2 games. When you have our next 2 opponents are the 2 worst teams in pass defense in the NFL, it's a good sign that Burrow can maybe get something going. He really got something going, against the Jets this past week. Like I said, 260 passing yards, and also had 3 passing touchdowns as well. So when you look at this, Dolphins team giving up like 300 passing yards a game, Burrow had 260. With Jamar Chase only getting 29. So I think Burrow is definitely capable of eclipsing that 300 mark that the Dolphins are giving up this season so far. And something, when you look at the Miami Dolphins last week, this is very interesting. I've said this so many times the past couple of months. You look towards the end of last season, the regular season for the Bengals last year, you look at the playoff run the Bengals had, this past season. Let's go into the Super Bowl. You look at the first 3 games so far this season for the Bengals. We have really seen the addition of Joe Mixon being involved in the pass catching game. So far this season in 3 games, Mixon has just a little bit over 100 receiving yards. He has 20 targets in 3 games. That is his most targets in any 3-game stretch of his career. And I really think he's going to go off this week tonight on Thursday Night Football. When you look at this Dolphins team, the Dolphins gave up over 125 receiving yards to running backs last week when they took on the Buffalo Bills. Devin Singletary had over 75 receiving yards. They had some other players who had receiving yards as well, like Cook. So when you look at they're giving up 300 passing yards a game. Burrow got 260 with Jamar Chase getting just 29. When you look at, they gave up over 125 receiving yards to running backs last week, and Joe Mixon is getting more involved in the pass catching game. 20 targets last 3 games, a career high for him on a 3-game stretch. I really think this is a game where we could see, Joe Burrow have, 330, 340 passing yards and a couple of touchdowns. I think this is a situation where we could see Joe Mixon finally have this, game that could really, start getting him going, because for whatever reason, it's so strange. We have yet to see Mixon really ball out in the game this year. It's due to happen. It's going to happen eventually. I would not be shocked at all if it's this week. Like I said, Mixon's only averaging 2.8 yards per carry so far in this season. I think, he'll have a decent amount of carries this game. This is the game, to me, I think the Bengals can really have a balanced attack of passing and running. And you look at this Dolphins team, it's a very interesting team. It's a very good team, surprising team so far this season. Tua has shocked a lot of people. He's not 100%. There's talks about him being questionable if he'll play or not. I would figure he's going to play. But the fact that he's questionable on game day, to me, makes it pretty much clear that he's not going to be 100%. The Bengals have to take advantage of Tua not being 100%. You need to blitz him and force him to bad throws and stuff like that. But he's played pretty good so far this season. And the Dolphins are a very interesting team because when you look at the Dolphins, they're kind of similar to the Bengals that, the more, people you have in this offense, the more you throw to, it's going to be hard to stop. Because when you look at this Dolphins team, they have, Tyreek Hill, they have Jalen Waddle, they have Cedric Wilson Jr., Mike Gesicki, Raheem Mostert. They have some nice players for the Miami Dolphins, and it's not a coincidence that Tua is now succeeding when he has all this talent that he has on offense. This should be a really close game. Last time I checked, the Bengals were picked to win by 3.5. That's kind of surprising to me, honestly. I think so far it goes without saying the Dolphins have been the better team this season, because even when you look, if even if the Bengals were 3-0 so far, I mean, we would have beat the Cowboys and the Steelers. Neither one of those teams are great right now. But, the white Bengal game tonight, they changed the logo on the 50-yard line to have the Ring of Honor, with Isaac Curtis and Willie Anderson being inducted into the Bengals Ring of Honor. It's going to be really, really cool. Kind of, similar to last season. We also had a primetime game, Thursday Night Football on week 4 last year, and that was a Ring of Honor game. That was a huge game, just like this year as well. But like I said, I think this game can go either way. I wouldn't be shocked if we lost. I wouldn't be shocked if we won. I am going to take us with a victory here. I think it's going to be a close game. This is a situation where this is going to be a very, very close game. I would not be shocked if it's one possession at all. And it's interesting because when you have close games, normally whoever has the better quarterback is going to win that game. And I think even though Tua has played better than Burrow this season, I'm still taking Burrow over Tua. But it's interesting because when it's close and it's one possession, there's times where I don't really fully trust Zach Taylor. There's times where he looks really good, other times he just looks really inconsistent. For instance, look at week 2 against the Cowboys. He got out coached by Mike McCarthy. That should never, ever, ever, ever happen. But this is going to be a close game. I'm going to say the Bengals win here. I think it's going to be 28-24. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bengals, Dolphins, Thursday Night Football tonight, a huge, huge game. If we win this game, we are right back in it. If we lose this game, we could be in some trouble because, we are currently 1-2. We lose this game, we'll be 1-3, and we take on the Baltimore Ravens next week in Baltimore. That's, I think that Ravens are overrated, but winning a game in Baltimore is not easy. So this is a huge game for us. This can really swing our momentum throughout the regular season. But like I said, let me know what you think in the comments below who you have winning this game between the Bengals and the Dolphins. That really about kind of does it for this video. If you're new to the channel or have seen my videos before, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time on the Sports Stu Hines Show.